Welcome back to Gun&ShotTV. This is Chris. Today we're going to be talking about snapcaps. I already talked about rimfire snapcaps, and a lot of rimfire guns, the older ones especially, you do want to use a snapcap. And so there's drywall anchors you can use for that purpose. You don't have to do anything. Now for a centerfire gun, if you want to use a snapcap, now you don't have to on a lot of centerfires. Most centerfires should be just fine to shoot without a snapcap. But if you're not sure, or it's an older gun or a collectible gun, something like that, or if you work on somebody else's gun and you want to test it, but you don't want to break a firing pin, I'm not going to say snapcap is a bad idea. You can purchase ones with a little spring and a little plunger. They're pretty expensive and they tend to wear out over time. So what I found is you can just make something yourself that will act as a snapcap and is pretty durable and pretty cheap, using some stuff that's easy to find at any hardware store. What you really need is you need some empty cases. Now you can use ones you pick up at the range, save some next time you shoot them. But whatever caliber you need the actual empty brass. Now if they're range pickups and you don't have reloading equipment, what you can do is you can use a punch and just put it in the case and whack it with a hammer and tap the primer out that way. If you have a decapping setup or a reloading setup, you can do it much quicker and easier that way. But once you get the case and you've got the primer removed, you're pretty much all set. So what you'll need is a hole punch like this, and you'll need some vinyl tubing or some rubber or some leather. I use this because it's easy to work with, it's easy to see. You'll just pick the right size for the primers you're using and punch out a couple of plugs. And I like to twist it like this so it for sure cuts the plug and you're not pulling it out with pliers. I've already got some that I've punched and set out here. This is actually a piece of like treadmill belt or something I was cutting before, and these are just some plugs I cut. So at that point you have your plugs, and I'll do one with this rubber belt and one with the PVC here. You're just going to take a little dab of super glue and make sure you get it in the pocket and around the base of the pocket here. So you've got your super glue, you've got your plugs, and you're just going to take them and press fit them in there. You want to turn them or something just to make sure that they're seated a little bit. And these plugs are actually pretty close to the right height. They might stick out a tiny bit. Now this one is definitely too tall, but that's okay, because what we're going to do first is we're just going to glue them in here. And so like you can kind of see this one's, it's sticking out too much, so it's actually too tall. This one is actually just about level. But what you're going to do is you're just going to glue those in there and let them sit for a couple hours or whatever. Just make sure the glue sets. At that point, it's easiest to just go through and take your carton opener or razor blade, whatever you got, and just slice off whatever's sticking above the case head here. So now you have a snap cap that will take repeated blows, has some flex to it. Like this one will work just as well. It's just, like I said, it's harder to see. This doesn't really break or fall apart or anything. I've seen some like with wood and stuff, but the wood can kind of fall apart. This might rip or it might get dented eventually, but you can always just pop it back out with a pin or with a punch and then do the same thing again if you ever do wear them out. If you want to use them as like dummy rounds or feedable rounds, it's a little bit dangerous. So I'm not going to say you shouldn't do that, but what you should do is you should make sure that they're clearly marked. So like mark them in red, and you could just take a bullet and put it in there, and if it's close, it might stay seated. But really, if you want to make dummy rounds, I would use actual reloading gear so you can make sure the bullet's seated to the right depth for feeding, and then so you can crimp it, because that would be a very bad day if you were using these dummy rounds and somehow one of the bullets worked loose and got in your barrel. You don't notice it, you go to the range and you shoot, and there's a barrel obstruction, you're going to blow out your barrel. So if you do want to make ones for feeding or something, make sure they're crimped with decent stuff, or maybe even glued in or something like that, and then make sure they're marked. So make sure this bullet is painted red or something like that. You could also, if you wanted, you could crimp these cases so they are obviously dummies. You could drill them, you could paint them red, do whatever you want to do, so long as you know what they are. And always make sure if you do put rounds, like a bullet in there, make sure that you find some way of attaching it and making sure that you know that that is a dummy round. Seating and crimping die, and I use a real heavy crimp on a dummy round like this, just because you don't want it coming out. And then the final step that you want to do is you want to take something to mark them. Like this is some pretty obnoxiously orange nail polish that's chilling in the medicine cabinet from God knows what. And so I'm just going to paint these orange on the tips here, so I know that this is a dummy round. This is also a very good practice if you make dummy rounds. If you post a video on the internet with a dummy round that you made and you didn't paint the tip orange, everyone will whine and cry in the comments for the rest of your life that you didn't use a dummy round. So this is, very, very handy thing to do if you intend to put videos on YouTube, because apparently that was a rule no one told me about. But here's your completed dummy rounds. And these will act as a snap cap. They'll keep a firing pin from getting damaged. They're, repairable. If this falls out or gets damaged, you can pry it out or pop the bullets and take it out from that way and just put another one in there. But for the cost of, this, or if you've got some rubber, an old treadmill belt, old fan belt, something like that, you can use that too. In a hole punch, you can make your own snap caps, and pretty much the cost of whatever you're going to pay for this is going to be the cost of buying one set of snap caps at the store. And this is enough to make a lifetime supply of snap caps. So for Gun and Shot TV, this is Chris saying have a rootin' tootin' drunken shootin' day. Thanks for watching.